All right. What's good, people? Welcome into Unfiltered. I really highly appreciate you all coming to our first Unfiltered. You know, it's a idea that I've been thinking about for a while. There's so many events that go on in Charlotte, and I'm 31, and a lot of the events are, you know, dancing, clubbing, barring, things like that. But I like to consider myself an intellectual, so I love like watching TED Talks or, you know, podcasts about things I'm interested in. So I came up with this idea, Unfiltered, and Mr. Ken Koontz is, I like to consider him my mentor, and every time I come to Archive, we have great conversations about past, present, and future. And I think conversations like that are very important, especially with everything that's going on now. Something that Mr. Koontz always tell me is, if you don't know your history, then you're doomed to repeat it. So with the first Unfiltered, I would like to introduce Mr. Koontz. I'm going to give a brief introduction. You know, Mr. Ken Koontz is a pioneering African-American journalist who became Charlotte's first black reporter when he joined WBTV in 1969. He was born in Texas, and he has a deep Charlotte roots through his mother. And he returned to go to Johnson C. Smith University, graduating in '72 with a degree in French. At WBTV, he spent 14 years as a reporter and an anchor before becoming the station's director of community affairs, producing and hosting initiatives like the Lou Rawls Parade of Stars telethons for the United Negro College Fund, early Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial observances, and Charlotte's first Walk America campaigns in 1995. Koontz moved into media entrepreneurship, founding All Stars Communications, LLC, and later WENS-TV, focusing on video production and internet-based broadcasting. A member of Alpha Phi Alpha, he has also been active in mentorship, writing, and photography. Koontz's work reshaped how WBTV engaged with the black community, and he has spoken about growing up in segregated communities and how those experiences informed his journalism career, leaving a lasting impact on Charlotte's media landscape. Let's give Mr. Ken Koontz a round of applause.
Is that how y'all do it? Yeah. One thing I want to say about that is I wasn't the first. I was WBTV's first. The first was a brother from Charlotte named Bob Nicholas at WSOC. But he was only on air there about 4 months, and stationed out in Houston, Texas, snapped him up that May of '69. And then I came here in August of '69 and started WBTV. So you might say it was a trade-off. I was the WBTV's first, but he was the city's first. But most people knew about me because he wasn't on the air very long, and then they were a deep, deep, deep number 2 behind us, so nobody was watching them anyway.
Okay, cool. Well, I want to go through, you know, a timeline of Mr. Ken Koontz in Beaumont, Texas. Mm-hmm. Can you explain to me how you all ended up in your early life in Beaumont?
Yeah. My dad was an educator. He had been a school principal and a classroom teacher, and also a professional photographer. And in his earlier life, I think it was 1942, he and a friend of his ran a school of photography in Dallas, Texas. And their financial backer was, I understand, a black dentist at the time. And so while the school was doing well, the black dentist was doing better with the refunds, with the funds generated. So that subsequently went by the way. But nonetheless, his passion for photography, he carried that on to students. And of course, being the young boy I was, I didn't want to do what my daddy was doing. I didn't want to teach school. I didn't want to be a photographer. But I did have the passion for meeting people and knowing people and interacting with people. And as my mother would say about my dad, you'd talk to a darn signpost if it stood there, and he would. And as a matter of fact, if you walk right out of here, there's a couple of posts that are very good friends of mine. We talk all the time. So a lot of me has come out to be just like my dad. But Beaumont, Texas, we ended up there because my dad occasionally would take another job. And in 1950, he took a job in a little town called Robstown, Texas. That's deep South Texas, 16 miles inland from the Gulf of Mexico at Corpus Christi, and about 95 miles from Brownsville, Texas, which was just about as close to Mexico as you could get. And when he went there in 1950, he took over a little 8th grade, 4-room elementary school with 2 classes per room. And in 1955, the U.S. Supreme Court said separate but equal was not legal and outlawed it. And so they stopped busing kids from my dad's 8th grade to Corpus Christi for their 9th through high school at a black high school there, and they started going to Robstown High. And I started playing in Little League Baseball, integrated, and that's when my first cross-cultural, multicultural opportunities began. Because for a period, my mom had gotten a little homesick, and Dad was trying to accommodate getting back to Charlotte. So he sent us back here, and we lived with my grandmother for a while where the Carolina Panthers practice field is. And then I was in the 1st grade, and then the 2nd grade, we moved up here on Holly Street, right in front of what's now the House of Prayer.
I'm gonna slow you down right there, Mr. Ken. I want to walk you down all the way till we got there.
Oh, okay. Well, Beaumont, my dad took a job there.
Okay. I have some photos of Mr. Ken Koontz and his family, and something that me and Mr. Ken have been doing is taking these older photos and colorizing them, because they kind of bring them to this world or to this time. So this is a colorized image of his family. And when I was doing this, I noticed there's a lot of things going on in this picture. Can you explain about this day, or do you remember you were such a small...
I do not I do not remember taking this picture. But my sister's still the same. She's 82 now. She lives here in Charlotte. She's about a 22, 23-year cancer survivor. She's now blind. She was the first featured baton twirler at West Charlotte High School, where she finished in 1961. That sister, well, by the way, her name is Eula Lee. And when she was born to my mother, these two were my mother's children from her first marriage. And she had dropped out of high school to elope to New York. But it was an abusive relationship, and she suddenly left with her and pregnant with that one. And subsequently, my dad, they met, fell in love, and he took these 2 girls as his own. So they are his dad, though they recognize and acknowledge their father, who later in life wanted to act like he was a father and all that stuff, and he hadn't been even a dad to them, though they told him, "You're our father. That's our daddy." So there is a difference. And then this one, Marilyn, she's the middle girl, because there was another one right after me. And Marilyn, like Eula, was musically inclined. She played the clarinet. Eula played percussions and string instruments. And when we were in Robstown, they didn't go to Corpus Christi. They went to Robstown High School. And she was on line to become one of the 5 lead majorette twirlers. And then she decided she and Marilyn wanted to come back and finish with their original classmates here in Charlotte, so Mom and Dad let them come back, and they finished high school. Marilyn subsequently went to a business school in Beaumont, Texas, and had accepted a job at the FBI in Washington. And she took the bus from Beaumont to D.C., but made a stop here in Charlotte. And between Beaumont and New Orleans was about an 8-hour ride. And after New Orleans, the little soldier boy that had been sitting on the bus across from her, they finally got to meet. And lo and behold, about a year and a half later, they were married for 49 years before he died. Now, the little rascal there with the bottle, with the bottle in his mouth, he was a little Dennis the Menace. And as I grew up and my sisters grew up and they had girlfriends, I started liking girls early in life. And they told me Ewell and Marilyn's badass little brother. But that's our family. And that picture was taken again at my grandmother's house down here about the 50-yard line of the Panthers practice field.
Okay. I love this photo.
Yeah.
Because of how sharp y'all are. I've never seen a baby in a pea coat, to be honest.
A what coat?
A pea coat. Is that what that is? A pea
I don't
coat?
know. It was an overcoat.
Oh, an overcoat.
Yeah.
But if y'all were, I didn't realize you were in Charlotte in this picture.
Yeah.
So if you were on the 50-yard line, that means you were in Brooklyn.
No, I was in Third Ward.
Third Ward.
Third Ward.
Okay,
yeah.
Third Ward.
Brooklyn was down there where you now have First Baptist Church downtown.
Yeah,
where they
yeah.
said they wasn't going to put any more churches in urban renewal. As soon as they got all the black churches out, they built this big white church, big pretty white church. But no, that's Third Ward. Yeah. My dad's name was Albert Clifton Koontz, A.C. Koontz. Smooth. She stopped him.
Where was your dad from?
My dad was born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas, where I was born.
Okay.
When my mother had gone back to finish high school here. They married December 31st, 1947.
That's my birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
1947, boy, you look good.
I look good, right?
But my mom and my dad had come back to marry her and then went back out to Texas to his teaching job. And in so doing, she graduated in May of 48 from Second Ward High School, 5 months pregnant with me. So I claim that I graduated high school twice. Once with her, and then once I walked across under my own power in 1967 in Beaumont.
Okay. I do have a few more pictures of your family that I want to get some info on. So,
okay.
Like this picture here.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Do you remember taking this picture?
Yeah. My dad, as I said, was a photographer, and he had set up his camera with a timer on it, and he was able to then run and jump in the seat there. And that's me with my suspenders. And my sisters, my mother did most of the sewing for the girls. And by then, you see the other one there, that's Wanda. She's the baby girl. And Wanda was a child prodigy in music. And as an 8-year-old, she won her first Texas Prairie View Interscholastic League, and that was the black Interscholastic League in the state of Texas, PVIL. She won her first piano solo contest with a song that I still remember called The Happy Farmer, and I still remember how it went. And by the time she was 11, she was sitting on a bench playing for a church, getting paid. And my mother, who was also musically inclined, by today's standards, she would have been performing at the Met. But times just were not on her side. But wherever we lived and whatever church we attended, my mother was always the choir director. Now they call them ministers of music. And the four of us were in her choir. And there was always an understudy that Wanda worked with or worked under, an older person. And subsequently, she went on to teach high school choral music and is now retired and struggles with Alzheimer's, living in Houston, Texas.
Here's another photo. I know you don't remember taking this photo.
No, I don't.
But
you didn't colorize the other one, did you?
Yeah, I didn't. I tried, but
it didn't work.
Yeah, it wasn't there.
Yeah, Jim and I said, "What the hell?"
But this one.
Yeah.
Are you all in church right here, or?
No, back up to the other one. I can tell you about.
Okay.
When I was born, my dad had taken my mother to the hospital, and they were so anxious about having a little brother. And Mother and Daddy said, "Okay, if we have a boy, what do y'all want to name him?" Well, they also loved the neighbor's dog they called Butch. And so we want to name him Butch. My dad said, no, we can't name him Butch. And they started crying. So to stop them from crying, my mother and father brought me from the hospital as Butch. And I've been Butch ever since. And depending on where you know me from is by what you call me. And I know if you call me Butch, I know where you know me from. If you call me Kenneth, I know where you know me from. And if you call me Ken, that's post age 20. And those are my two sisters. So I came home Butch. My parents named me Kenneth. That was taken in Robstown, Texas, on the porch of Ms. Daughtry. She and my mother were best of friends. Ms. Daughtry had two little girls, my sister's age, and I think those are my those are two older sisters on either side. On either side of me, and I don't know why that they were cropped out. You didn't do it, no, but that was me, and that's Wanda. Oh, she was she thought she was so pretty, and I remember that suit, and my bow tie, and my glasses. I had to wear glasses for about 2 years when I was aged about 9 and 10. They said there was a little spot on my eye, but the eyeglasses would correct it, and thus the eyeglasses. That's also about the time I began to play baseball. And then my mother, we had come home from church that Sunday, and Daddy was always taking pictures of stuff, and that's a picture of us.
Baseball.
Little League Baseball. This picture, I'm a 10-year-old, and I'm standing right here. The year before, as a 9-year-old, Robstown had started what's called a minor league program. Now, this is part of the National Little League that you all see every year on the Little League World Series. And I told you that we integrated. And this guy is Marvin Upshaw. Any of y'all know Gene Upshaw, who played the NFL? Well, that's his brother. And Marvin was 12 my 10-year-old year. And my dad was all of their principals. And I said we were integrated. This is a Mexican, David Jones. He later became a high school quarterback and outstanding. He's Mexican. We called him Fats. I never will forget. Adolfo Villarreal. And this is Jackie Jessup. He became a lawyer, a little left-handed outfielder. He was short, relatively, but was a good kid. His family, his grandparents owned a clothing store in Robstown. And then there's me. And this was a kid named Carl Hayes. He broke all kind of track records in Robstown. His dad was our coach. And behind me is Robert Barrera. He had an older brother. No, that's Victor. And I can't remember who that was. And this was another white kid, and that's Coach Hayes in the glasses. That's all you see. And this is Lloyd Parker. He was a left-hander, as was Jackie. And this is Jesse Hawkins. He was a stud. Y'all know about Derrick Henry, the big running back for?
Yeah.
He was a Derrick Henry before there was a Derrick Henry.
Oh, wow.
And then my 10th grade year, my 10-year-old, and this was my 12-year-old year, my last year at Robstown High School. at Robstown Little League, and our team was called the Rotary Club Dodgers, and that was a white men's civic club, and they sponsored us. And there is Jesse.
During this time, so before this, you played in a segregated baseball team?
No.
Okay.
I always played a little, and they were integrated before I came into it.
Okay.
They were integrated, and they went, he and his brother and some of the other kids there were 5 other teams, and they made up the Robstown All-Stars and went to compete in the Little League World Series starting at the local level, and won the state of Texas and went to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I wasn't on that team, but he and his brother and some other Mexicans and white kids were made up from those all combined 6 teams.
What year was this?
Let's see. I was born in September 48, and here, this must have been 57.
57?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the Little League season was over in July.
Yeah.
And then on this one, it must have been, I was 12 on this one, so it must have been
59?
59.
Okay. During this time period with
No, 60.
60.
60.
With segregation going on, how did you view that, or what did you experience? Did you think like this is just like any other baseball team or any other school, or were you like
Everything was just like everything else to me.
okay?
As a young kid, I wasn't all into all that racist stuff because, first of all, I hadn't seen it. At this time, we lived in an integrated society, Nueces County, Texas. And not only was Robstown integrated, but so was Corpus Christi and some other towns on about a 35-mile radius. But once you got 40, 45 miles outside, that's when communities had not desegregated. And that's when you really began to experience the ugliness of segregation. And I'm sure there was some even during those time periods, but we didn't know. My dad was a star in the town because he was the principal of what was the former all-black school. And when he went there in 1950, in those 8 grades, about 25% of the kids were Mexican who came. Many of them didn't even speak English. And the first, we had a maypole. I don't know y'all familiar with Cinco de Mayo. Well, in Robstown, my daddy's school observed Cinco de Mayo. And the maypole, the first maypole queen we had was a little Mexican girl named Marian Marinas. And she happened to live 2 doors over from some cousins. And then right next to my cousin was another Mexican couple. And then the next 3 houses on that block were black families. So to answer your question, the Rotary Club took over sponsorship after the Robstown Record, which was the weekly newspaper. And that weekly newspaper was published by a man named Bill Keach. And he visited our home, and things about our school and our people were frequently in the Robstown Record, the local newspaper. We didn't see it as a black newspaper or a white newspaper. It was a newspaper, and everybody read it. Same thing with the larger city, Corpus Christi, which at that time had about 117,000 people. And their paper was called the Corpus Christi Caller. And I think they may have had a morning and an afternoon paper, but bottom line is their high schools and everything were integrated just like our was, or we were in Robstown. But it was also a part of Nueces County. But to your point about the segregation and the hatred and stuff, I didn't see that until we left. And like we'd come to Charlotte every summer, drive up here. And I remember Victoria, Texas, deep curve, Highway 77, which was also then, and it still is, OST. That's the old Spanish Trail from Mexico up through Texas and into the south, going up north. And we had stopped to get gas. And my dad got out, and while the machine was pumping the gas, my daddy just automatically went to the restroom. And the gas station guy came out. Hey, nigger, get out. We don't have no bathroom for no niggers. Get out. And my mother told my daddy, don't say nothing. Just put the gas up, pay him for what we got, and let's get the hell out of here. And that's what we did. And in our driving up, we would leave. It was a 2-day trip. Well, it was about 1,200 miles from Robstown to Charlotte. And there were no interstates to speak of. If you got into a stretch of 4-lane highway, 2 in each way, and a median, It wasn't necessarily interstate, it was just 4-lane highway. And there were no hotels, there were no Holiday Inns and Marriotts and Comfort Inns that we could sleep in, 'cause number one, they didn't exist. And the ones that did were these little motels. You might see some of them now. You go through a town and there's a little motel that maybe has a carpool right up in front door of the motel. That was a motel structure back then, and they wouldn't let us stay. And we couldn't stop and go into a Chili's or a Cheddar's. They didn't exist, and the ones that did, the white folks wouldn't let us come in. We could go around to the back and get food. But I recall the one place that we didn't have to always go to a back was Dairy Queen. That was a St. Louis-based outside the Mason-Dixon line. And so their system didn't have segregation. The ones that we stopped at did. I remember the three places really, and one that still remains today my favorite was Meridian, Mississippi. Because by the time we got from Robstown, if we left at 1 o'clock in the morning, it may be 3 or 4 in the afternoon. They had a distinct black downtown. Tuskegee was a black town. And then there was Montgomery, Alabama, that had a distinct black section that did have hotels, restaurants, movie theaters. But Meridian was my favorite because we could stop there, go right to the hotel where we knew, go across the street to the restaurant that we knew, and then Mother and Daddy, wanting to get some rest, would give us money to go around the corner to the theater, and then we'd go back to that hotel. And that's where we would spend the night, the next day, and by early evening, we'd be pulling into Charlotte.
Okay. This kind of fast forward in the timeline, but I'm just curious. When you did get a chance to go into a white restaurant, were you excited? Were you like, yeah, like I get to eat some white food? Or were you like, I don't care? Or like, what was that?
It didn't
like?
bother me none. I'd already been going to white restaurants.
Okay.
But when we left Robstown after my 6th grade year, we moved to a little place called Raywood. Now that's on US Highway 90 between Houston and Beaumont. And Highway 90 runs all the way out to California, and you know it as Interstate 10. That didn't exist when we moved from Robstown to Raywood. I was there in the 7th and 8th grade. Not only was it segregated, but there was a whole nother pattern of I won't call it racism because you can't be racist towards your own people, but it was my first experience in a black Catholic community.
Okay.
And they call them Cajuns. All y'all know about Cajuns and Creole and coon asses. That's what we call them. So, and they hear this language. They spoke a very distinct, broken English language. But my dad took a job there as a science teacher. The school was grade 1 through 12. It was a single A school, all black and rural. So we rode a bus to school, and some days I would ride up with Daddy earlier, or Mother would drive us to school because she had the car during the day. And it was there that I encountered my first black separatists, you might say, because the Cajun Catholics, many of them looked white. Our principal had sons, and they looked like you. And if there was a family that maybe had a pretty little daughter, I wanted to whisper in her ear, "Boy, where you from?" And not only that, once they found out my dad was a school teacher, they eased up, but I still couldn't court their little daughter. And that was that set. And then on weekends, some of those Cajun kids would go into Liberty, Texas, which is the oldest city in Texas, was about 8 miles from Raywood, where we lived and where he was a teacher. And they would go in some weekends and mix and mingle with the white folks and then come back and brag about it on Mondays at school. So that was my first encounter of racism and hatred. But they respected my dad for the fact that he was an educator. And back then, teachers did carry some clout and respect. And then after that, we moved to Beaumont, where I was in the 9th grade. And there was segregated schools there. And the segregation just continued. But hell, I was happy in our neighborhood.
Right,
You know,
right.
we didn't care, didn't need white folks. But then when desegregation came down the pike, freedom of choice was the next. And so we had kids that went to our black high schools, guys who maybe couldn't make our football team, went over to the other folks' school and became all-state in 3 sports. And that's no lie. One of them was a friend of mine, a guy named Dwight Harrison. He played trumpet in the band. And because our high school was such a powerful athletic team, you know, the coaches, you know, looked at the band boys, you know, with some disdain. But we had some band boys that could play. One of them was a fellow named Rufus Cormier. He played a bass, he played the tuba. And in football, because he was so big, he weighed 205 at the time, they accepted him into the athletic fold, and he went on to become the second black at SMU. And the first had been a guy that had been not a teammate because I was on the JV, but this kid was on the varsity. His name was Jerry Levice, and the first black in the Southwest Conference, and he played at SMU. And he came out of our high school. So yeah, South Park was the second high school, public high school in the South Park district of Beaumont. And then there was our main competitor, Charlton Pollard, in the Beaumont Independent District. And their kids would leave there and go to Beaumont High and French and Forest Park and become stars.
Okay. That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
I have a couple of more pictures in here, you know, with the fam.
That, again, is on the, but before you get to that one.
Okay.
That car is parked against that pole right there. That's our family car. It was a Dodge, 1948 Dodge. That's my grandmother's porch, front of her house. And this is South Johnson Street, no longer exists now. This swing here, back then families had porch swings and chairs. And these little, I remember having to water her plants. That was a red swing. I remember once they painted it. It had been gray. She painted it red. And you see these here, these houses, many of them were up high enough off the ground that you could actually go under the house and play. And oftentimes we did. And you see my sister Eula, she has her violin. Marilyn's wearing her glasses. And there's Wanda. Wanda had the shortest little nappy hair. You don't understand that, but at any rate, and mine, you know, my grandmother, bless her soul, they really couldn't afford to send you to a weekly barbershop, get a nice clean cut like you got. So my grandmother would cut my hair. Now, my grandmother was like many grannies back in the day, not now. But my granny was a nice, heavy little lady, and she ran a boarding house for black mail clerks and Pullman porters who couldn't stay in the hotels when they came through Charlotte because the railroad station was just on the other side of this stuff here, right there where y'all know where the Greyhound bus station is uptown. Well, the Greyhound bus station was the Greyhound Trailways right across the street from the federal courthouse uptown. But the train station was at street grade, and those guys, when they had a layover, they could come to my grandmother's house, a 10 to 15-minute walk, get a meal, and she had set one of her bedrooms to accommodate 6 sleepers, men, and those who had overnight stays would stay there. They would come. They would maybe get dinner and breakfast and then go on back to catch their next train out. So that's how she made a living. And 5 of her 6 kids went to college and graduated. But this car, if that car were not there, it would be on a deep incline going downhill. So to protect against the brake slipping or anything, they would park it right there against that. And over here is an open field, and it was a slope down to it, and we used to ride cardboard as a slide down there. And
So your granny sold plates.
yeah, my granny sold plates.
Yeah, people don't know about that. A lot of nowadays.
No, they come. Her dining room. She had a real
Yeah.
nice dining set. But what I was gonna say about my grandmother was, by the way, that was a blue and white. My grandmother cut my hair, and back then, y'all don't know nothing about this, but the clippers were squeezed. And my grandmother would get me, come here, Butch. It's time to cut your hair. You ain't going to church with a little nappy head like that tomorrow. Oh, shit. Yes, sir. And she would set me between them big legs. And my grandmother was about a 48 double D. And she grabbed my head and pulled me up, and nothing sticking out but my little nappy hair. And she got them clippers, and she going, and I'm sitting there going like that. And then one time, she cut my hair, and it was horrible. Back in the day, they said, "Ooh, mama plugged your head." So my uncle and my older sister, Eula, they called themselves Gonna Fix It. They took me into the bathroom, locked the door, got the clippers, and took me back in there and called themselves straightening out my hair. It was about a half hour later before Mama saw me. "Butch, come here. What's wrong with your head?" "Nothing." "Don't lie to me. Something wrong with your hair. Who cut your hair?" "You." "Don't tell me that. Don't you tell me that lie." "Lee and Wilson." "Wilton!" "You're the lead." That's what she, when they call you by your first and middle name, oh shit. So I never will forget. She didn't whoop me, but she tore their asses up because they didn't want me to go to church the next Sunday with that haircut looking like that. And it would have had to go like that for another 2 weeks because she would cut my hair every 2 weeks. And that must not have been one of them days she cut my hair. No, she couldn't have cut my hair like that. It wouldn't have looked that good. Thank you. I know you doctored that up. Now this, back to Robstown, Texas. Now the Robstown High School mascot name was the Robstown Cotton Pickers. Robstown Cotton Pickers. Now, it was called the Cotton Pickers, not because of the people, but because that was the cotton belt. And every summer, our little town of about 11,000 people, the population between June and probably the last of July or 1st of August would increase by 2,000 to 2,500 migrant workers, most of them Mexican, who came in to pick the cotton. And this was one of those days, and the black folk in Robstown, some of them, they look forward to it, to go pick cotton, because it was supplement income. We went because, hey, y'all going to pick cotton today? Yeah. Well, Mr. Gus, who was the white guy, the kind of, I guess you would say the overseer of the crew, he would come around every morning pulling his trailer, and black folk who were going to pick cotton that day, they knew who he was. He'd be coming down the street blowing the horn. They'd come out with their cotton sacks, get in the trailer, go out to the cotton field, pick cotton all day, and at the end of the day, get back in the trailer, and he'd bring them back home. And then on Saturday mornings, he'd come around with his little book and pay people off, and he had cash money. Nobody ever thought about, well, I don't know if they thought about it, but nobody ever robbed Mr. Gus. Nobody. Nobody. You let a white man come through the hood with a little bag of cash and think he gonna get out of there without getting hit. we loved Mr. Gus. And this was my dad. Now, in the summers, he didn't do the cotton thing. He would go to Corpus Christi, 16 miles away, and work what was called the extra board for longshoremen. And they would go out and load and unload ships because Corpus Christi was also a port city. And it paid good. My daddy would make, in the summer going to the longshoremen, he would make about half as much as he would teaching school, but that wasn't his passion, that wasn't his call, but it was a little extra income. Now, I got about 3-4 pounds of cotton in my little sack and my little straw hat. And by the way, how many of y'all know what a croaker sack is?
A croaker sack? No, what is that?
Burlap.
Oh, burlap sack. Okay.
And my daddy's got his sack. He's probably got, I estimate, that's at least 90 to 100 pounds of cotton in that sack. And I'm standing at the scale. That's a scale there. And he would strap that up there, and the scale weighs the cotton. And back then, if you got $2 a hundred, that was considered pretty good. And I know he had 100 pounds in that sack, and you see some other folks spread out across the back there. But the population boom every summer would increase because of the cotton industry. And then the cotton, Mr. Gus would take the trailer once we got it full to the cotton gin, and the vacuum would suck up all the cotton and then separate the cotton seeds and then bale the cotton. And those 2,000 to 2,500 immigrants who would come through every summer worked. They didn't generally hang out on our crew because we were pretty much an all-black crew because of our community. But we lived in a mixed neighborhood. We lived in a black, white, and Mexican neighborhood. And then the last year and a half we were there, 2 years we were there, we lived in an all-Mexican neighborhood. And when we first moved into that neighborhood, they did rock our house and rock the car until they found out who my daddy was and the fact that by then I'd grown up and that I played Little League baseball. So it wasn't that big of a deal, but we all became very best of friends. But yeah, the Cotton Bowl, that was the team mascot.
What was the logo?
That was it. The
was
logo.
Just a ball, a cotton ball?
The logo was a cotton bowl.
On the helmets and everything?
On the helmets and the bass drums. The bass drum had a big cotton bowl on it.
Wow.
Now, I probably feel like most of you thought that they said the cotton pickers was the mascot, but it wasn't. It never was. And my sisters and all remember going to the Cotton Bowl because the bands from across the state of Texas were invited to the Cotton Bowl parade, and they went, and they were spat upon. They were not allowed to stay in the hotels in Dallas at the time, and so our band director took quite a bit of exception to that, but subsequently they did a one-day trip instead of going up there and staying overnight and having the great Cotton Bowl weekend experience.
Okay. We're going to fast forward a little bit. Okay. I know you didn't go straight to Charlotte for college. Mm-hmm. You went to Lamar State College.
That ain't it.
That's not it?
No, that's Second Ward High School.
Oh. Well, we're going to pretend like that's Lamar State College.
Yeah.
What made you go there?
Cheap.
It's cheap?
I was a Texas resident. And when I graduated high school, I had a scholarship to Johnson C. Smith University, where I really had wanted to come and play football and baseball. But number one, they didn't have a baseball team. Number two, I had broken my jaws in our Texas State 4A baseball championships, so I didn't have a chance to work that summer and make any money to offset what I may have had to pay if I came to Smith. So I stayed and went to Lamar. I lived at home, and Lamar had just integrated in 1961. So I went in 67 as a freshman, and so some of the vestiges of the old South and attitudes of anti-integration were still there. But they were coming around. So I went there as a freshman in 67, and my tuition as an off-campus full-time student was $83 a semester. And I carried 18 hours my first and second semesters. And then the next year, my sophomore year, they went up on tuition to $90 a semester. And, and also, Texas did not have a state income tax. You know, a lot of that stuff was financed through oil money. But I went there for 2 years, 67 to 69. And as you recall, Martin Luther King was killed in 68. And I was on my way to get a barbecue sandwich uptown Beaumont when listening to the radio, and I heard the news. And when I got to the stand and got my barbecue, I wanted to get back home to hear the news. And needless to say, Lamar experienced some difficulties, racial disharmony. And so I concluded, I can't stay here and do this. And I inquired about coming to Johnson C. Smith. Now, that was made possible by then President Dr. Lionel Newsom, who was also the president of our National Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And we met in Houston at our national convention, 1969. And I inquired of him the possibility that I might still come to Smith on scholarship that they had offered and rescinded. And but that was on me. So he said, I don't know, son, but we'll check into it. And at that time, I had interest in media. And I was doing high school football play-by-play with the Jocks. And having been on that state 4A football team through the third game, and I quit to go to the booth, I had some experience. I also did freelance writing for the Houston Forward Times, the black newspaper, and I worked with their stringer that covered what's called the Golden Triangle, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Orange, and did interviews and things like that for him, and then got to do the morning drive, news, weather, and sports for the black radio station. So with that interest and background, Dr. Newsom said, you have an interest in media, we'll see what we might be able to find for you. So he comes back, and I'm thinking, he'll get this sorry Charlie, nothing happening. 2 weeks later, he called and said, son, we don't have a scholarship for you anymore. But with your background and experience and what you want to do in media, there's this thing called the Kerner Commission, which happened in 1969. And that Kerner Commission was a study of racial situations in America, and it concluded that we were two Americas, one black and one white. And to that extent, Columbia University and the president of CBS, William Friday, decided they would implement a program toward getting blacks into their newsrooms, because not only was America two colors, two countries, one black and one white, so were their newsrooms. And so they went on a campaign, and that's how Dr. Newsom orchestrated my getting here. And 2 weeks after enrolling at Smith, I was taken out to WBTV and an interview with their human resource person and their news director, and subsequently was hired to be a reporter. Now, never having been in a newsroom before, it was clear that I did not have the experience necessary to go immediately on the air. So they brought me in. They gave me training, taught me writing skills, typing skills, and I'm one of the fastest 2 to 4 finger typers you'd ever want to see. And subsequently became on the air. And in my career, I loved it. I loved it. And that's where I got from Beaumont to Charlotte and the roads that got me here.
What's going on in this picture right here?
Good-looking guy. This picture was taken by, how many of y'all have heard of the Peeler collection? James Peeler, local photographer. My daddy taught him and influenced him into the profession of photography, as were 2 other students that my dad had taught at West Charlotte, who decided to go to the New York Institute of Photography and get their degrees in photography and come back. When I came in 69, he heard about me and made it his business to be sure that he gave me coverage with his camera. And this was one of the pictures that we took at WBTV. And now my career was not on that side of the camera. I was on the other side. Hey. And so that's what that picture was about, 1969. And Sharice, as a matter of fact, has that picture on something around here, and she's actually made a shirt with it or something. But at any rate, yeah.
Okay. Before you get to this, I want to ask you, when you got here, it was 69, and you went to Johnson C. Smith. What was Charlotte like? What was that area, Black Charlotte, like?
Black Charlotte was a very cohesive group of people. A lot of folks would have you to believe, like Tommy Robinson's son, Wilmo, he would have you believe ain't nothing like the West Side. That's bullshit. The West Charlotte kind of got all of this by default, because this community, University Park and West Charlotte High School, they were designed and made for black folk. The original West Charlotte was Northwest School of the Arts. That's where my daddy taught in 44, 45.
I never knew that.
And in 1954, expecting the Supreme Court ruling, Charlotte decided, let's give them colored people a really nice school and they won't want to come to Myers Park. And so they built West Charlotte High School, which was a class act, and some of your grandparents would tell you that West Charlotte was the stick. They had cosmetology, they had all kind of vocational training, and their students in the regular academic courses were bright, going off to colleges and coming back and being teachers and professionals. And so Beatties Ford Road became Beatties Ford Road by default, because urban renewal moved the black folk out of the center city. And many of them came northwest, but many of them started the desegregation of formerly white communities like Clanton Park. And when black folks started moving in Clanton Park, the white people ran to Hampshire Hills. No, they didn't. They ran to Hidden Valley. And then when black folk, in the first one was Dr. Raleigh Bynum, a local optometrist, and the first black optometrist in Charlotte, he bought a house in Hidden Valley, and he tells the story of how his neighbors across the street welcomed him to the neighborhood, said, "We're so glad you're here." And a week later had a for sale sign on their front yard. And they ran to Hampshire Hills off the plaza. And once they got to Hampshire Hills, and then black folks started moving, said, "Damn, we can't outrun them, so we may as well, accept it." Now, Hampshire Hills and all that, Eastbrook Woods, they're all predominantly black now. But a lot of the white folks who were still there, many of them are aging out and dying out, but they didn't run anymore. They said, it's the new world. We may as well get used to it. So that's kind of how that pattern of migration went. And then, of course, in the late 70s and early 80s, as black economic prowess started to elevate, none of those folks who left the black community, and I say the best, and it took a village to raise a child, the best of the village left the village, and the least of the village to fend for themselves while they rolled off to Myers Park and River, off of Providence Road, and other more affluent communities, Tigger K, to emulate white folks at 80% of their AMI, average median incomes. So the economic structure was never the same. We just went over there and played like we had it. And as a result, the neighborhood, which I call the village, degenerated to what folks will now call the hood. Well, if you ever say, "I'm going to the hood," and you're talking to me, go to hell. Because the hood is not a term of endearment. The hood is what folks fear now, because they see a lot of stereotypes stereotypes about the hood, but if you really immerse yourselves and get to know the hood, you will find that the hood is desperately lacking that very same strata of folk who left us to go and emulate other people who didn't want you there in the first place, but they would smile and grin at you, and two weeks later, they got a for sale sign in their front yard. So we now come back to the village and to get our hair did and go to church.
Okay, what do you think about, this is kind of off topic.
Oh, that's all right.
Back during that time, the 60s and 70s, when we were leaving the village, what was the thought process of black people as far as when we moved to Hampshire Hills or moving into Hidden Valley, into these white neighborhoods? Was it to...
I'm going to put it to you in a song. And we're moving on up.
Okay. But this area was prominent.
Yeah, it was.
So why was it moving up if we have black businesses, black everything? Why, what is it like? Because now we leave the hood because, or people leave the hood because, like what you said, it turned into the hood. But back then, why would we leave that?
Because we're moving on up.
Okay.
But the other part of that, in addition to moving on up, was that your granddad and them would tell you the general premise was, for those who left, white man's ice is colder, his water is wetter, and therefore I want to be where the ice is cold, the water is wet, the sun shines all day, and I can walk. You go out here now, 15 years ago, you walking down Beatties Ford Road and you got your pocketbook on your shoulder, you know, there's not a good chance, but there's the potential that you're going to have a problem. Now we got Becky Sue running all through the neighborhood, a ponytail just swinging, pushing a baby, and ain't nobody saying a damn thing to her that ain't bothered her. And there was a woman over on Matheson Avenue. You know where St. Luke Baptist Church is? Well, a good friend of mine's son lives on Rachel Street, which comes out to Matheson Avenue there. And he was walking to the store up on Statesville, across from then Double Oaks. And this little white woman was out jogging, and she saw him coming, and she went across the street and kept jogging. He said, I just do be damned. Another instance, he was walking the neighborhood, and this white woman came out of a house, saw him walking. Next thing you know, police car done rolled up on him, talking about, who are you, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And he asked, what do you mean? He said, well, your neighbor over there called the police, said that there was a strange man walking in the neighborhood. Needless to say, he said some words like motherfucker and piece of shit and all kind of stuff he used to explain, I grew up in this neighborhood. She's the fucking one who's the newcomer. But that's happening all over the place now. But now they're finding places like McCrory Heights are nice places to live. They always were. McCrory Heights, like the center city before Beatties Ford evolved like it did. Brooklyn, First Ward, Third Ward, what was the other one? First, Second Ward. Those are all black neighborhoods, prominent black neighborhoods with the combination of the best and the least. You know, if you had a bad kid and he did something down at the park, before he got home, somebody had either told your mom and daddy or whooped his ass before he left the park. So when he gets home, mom and dad already know, they ain't even got a phone. So, you know, we have to take a lot of responsibility, CJ, a lot of responsibility for who we are and where we are, and call it's a terrible pun, call a spade a spade.
For sure. I want you to explain what's going on in this picture, and after that, I want to open it up to everyone else to join in on the community convo.
You see, WBTV used to sponsor an event uptown called Springfest, and merchants and vendors and everything were all along Tryon Street and around the area. And Discovery Place was it was either under construction or had just been built, and that's right behind me. And I was at WBTV at the time, and my son Kenny, who's now 44, lives in Amsterdam, has started a technology company and doing well. This is my daughter, Imana. She's the head of school at Trinity Episcopal Academy. And this is my daughter, Karen. She's New York. She's fallen in love with New York, says she ain't never coming back to Charlotte. I say, well, stay up there. If you happy, I'm ecstatic. But I ain't sending you no money. And then there's me. And I've got a picture somewhere of him on my shoulder. And that was my all-time favorite picture. But that's me and my kids uptown at Springfest. And see, it sponsors Going Places or something that T-shirt had. And that was mine, WBTV Alive at Springfest. I still got that button. Anybody want to buy it? And my kids here. Yeah. I think I may still have that shirt. And then the Charlotte Motor Speedway, which is also one of the sponsors. And I had taken them out to Springfest that Saturday.
Yeah, that's a beautiful picture.
That's
beautiful
a great
picture.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the same ring?
Huh?
In the picture?
Yep, that's the ring. That's this ring right here, which is my Alpha Phi Alpha. Where I pledged was at Lamar University. But it was called Lamar Tech then, Lamar State College of Technology. And but I graduated from Johnson C. Smith, and on that ring I had my A Phi A on there. And this ring, I got it when I was 16 years old in Beaumont, Texas. My mother was going downtown to Zales Jewelers to pay on her layaway. Any of y'all know what a layaway is? Yeah. Well, and I went with her. I had a little job, and I went with her. And as we were walking into Zales off the sidewalk there, on either side was the showcase, big window with all the jewelry displays, and then you walk in the middle of it was going into the store. And as we were walking in, this ring was sitting on a little display in that window, and it was early morning, and the sun was just sparkling right off of that diamond. And it said, "Hey, come here." So I went over and looked at that ring, and that K was calling my name. And it was $29.95 in 1965. And I said, dang, I like that. So they had layaway. My mother had good credit there, so they let me buy the ring on credit. And I was going to pay them $5 a week. And after week number 2, I said, I got to get my ring. So I went on and paid off the layaway, and I've had that ring on ever since. Before I got my college graduation, I was wearing this ring over here. So these are the 2 most important pieces of jewelry that I have. Now, I know it's going to raise the question, but what about the kids? Well, that was my first wife, our daughter, Karen, and this was the second wife. Now, she was from her mom's first marriage, but like my dad, I adopted her as my own. And she loves me, and that's our son. So that's hers, mine, and ours. My pride, my joy, and my heart. And that's it. I ain't doing no more.
Hey, Sylvester Stallone just got a girl pregnant. He 80. He older than you.
And your point.
Never too late.
Look,
But
I don't have my little ribbon on here, but I just recently fought and defeated prostate cancer. So I'm a year and a half into prostate cancer survivor. And the doctor gave me 4 options. And of those 4 options, I said radiation going to destroy some other good cells. What's the other one? The C word. There was radiation, chemotherapy, and implants, and prostate removal. I said, Doc, I'm 74 years old. My kids are all grown. I got grandkids. I ain't got no money. So I ain't trying to yoke up in nobody's face, making all kind of promises I can't keep. So let's take that sucker out and get rid of it. So that's what I chose to do. And for you men, stay up on your PSA. The PSA is a prostate-specific antigen. And by the time you're 40 years old, they want to start checking your PSAs every year. Now, anything under 4 is considered within reasonable and normal range. But if they check your prostate at some point and it's a 1.5 or 2.0, and you go back the next year and it's 7 or 8, there's a good chance you got some cancer going. And that is when the doctors will then tell you, let's take a look and see. And they will generally do this. They monitor that by a blood test. They do your blood work. And that PSA will strike up some interest. And then they will likely have you go through an MRI to see what it looks like. And then if it looks suspicious to them, they will do a biopsy. And that biopsy is when they'll go in there and take the little samples and send it off. And that sample will come back and say, yep, that's what it is. And mine came back, yep, that's what it is. But I was stage 1. And of the options, the other 3 would likely be, I'll be monitoring this shit the rest of my life. I don't want to do that. So I chose to have it removed. And as a matter of fact, I had another sip of this water. And if I have to get up, y'all know why. And if your dads, because all y'all are young guys, talk to your daddy. Say, Dad, well, what's your number? And if he starts out with an area code, no, Dad. What's your PSA? And if he doesn't know what a PSA is, he ain't seeing the doctor. Tell him, Dad, get a blood test for your PSA. Because trust me, prostate cancer is no joke. And there are a lot of brothers in particular, because we are not known to be overly aggressive about our health. Be sure he gets his PSA. And for y'all, your dads, your grandfathers too. And get serious about it. You know, threaten to leave him. Say, Daddy, I ain't coming home no more until you can tell me what your PSA is. He'll say, good, because I'm tired of feeding your big ass anyway.
Okay. Did anybody in the audience have any questions for Mr. Ken Koontz? Anybody?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. I
Oh.
like to say good morning because it sounds happier. Good evening.
Oh, yeah, I got you. I'm just kidding.
My name's Michaela. I'm getting my master's in mass communications right now. So if you have any words of advice in the media landscape and all that it is right now, or just anything for a young black woman trying to do her big one.
Yes, I do. The landscape has changed drastically from when I came along. Like we're doing this interview right here. Is it live? Yeah. Oh, okay. Really?
Well, we're not live. We recording.
No, but back in the day, you saw that big ass camera I was standing behind. You know, to do this as a live, you wouldn't have been able to do this as inexpensively as it is and as easily as it is. And as far as a job is concerned, you would have had to been working at a TV station to get them to want to do this. And then somebody's going to have to pay the tab to do it. But now technology and the skills of these guys now is so far advanced. You don't have to ask nobody for a job. You can create your own. And by creating your own, you ain't got to worry about splitting no money. You don't have to worry about somebody saying, well, do you have any experience? You can always say yes. And what I encourage young people now to do, if you're in college, get you an internship. And if you can't come through with an internship, become a freelancer as a writer, videographer, or whatever, or as an independent contractor. The brother that just walked out of here, he has a PR firm. And the stuff I've seen on some of the stuff, damn, they do that, and he did it with a phone. Become a freelancer.
So I do freelance for Queen City Nerd.
Okay. And find you anybody and become an independent contractor. Let's say Zay wants some publicity. Well, he can get a lot of that on his own. But sometimes he probably can get so busy he don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. Well, I'll handle that for you for a nominal fee. Now, I'm going to tell you, he cheap. Find your little niche of what you want to do and then do it. There's another young sister that comes in here who's a social media manager. She's 22, 23 years old. And but when somebody's looking for somebody, if she gets on LinkedIn or one of those things like that, she's already got a presence. They don't know you just working on your master's. You can tell them you're working on your master's. That's good because now they know you've already got one level of education. So they're going to tell you anyway when they hire you, forget everything they taught you or that you learned. You're going to do it our way. But that's the thing. That's the thing. Become a freelancer, independent contractor. And don't sell yourself cheap. Don't sell yourself cheap. Yes, ma'am. Oh, by the way, that's $100.
Tyler?
Yeah, so being someone who's been a part of the Smith family for a while.
Who?
JCSU, Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, okay.
And being someone who's lived here for a while and seen the different ways in which the university is engaged with the community or in many ways not engaged with the community, what do you see that Smith's doing right now in terms of, because as a professor there, I know that our students are told not to go off campus, don't walk around, don't talk to people, that kind of thing, and which is deeply disturbing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a new administration, but we're also not necessarily seeing the change quickly. So I'm curious about what do you think that we're doing well as a university in terms of being a part of this community, and what do we need to work on?
Well, first of all, I'd say winning football games. Because winning cures a lot of stuff. Did you go to Durham last weekend for the CIAA? Did anybody go to Durham for the CIAA? Well, that stand on the Smith side was packed. I hadn't seen that many people at a Johnson C. Smith football game, even over the last 2 years the year that we were winning, and even now winning as much as we have. I had never seen a crowd that big on campus at all. That's how we used to pack it out at Memorial Stadium. So that's one thing that they can do. But my problem with the university began several years ago when the president then decided that they would build a fence around the campus. So now they're landlocked. And they're still on the same 107 acres the white folk gave them in 1867. But every other virtually progressive university all over the place, they bought hotels, they bought neighborhoods, they've advanced and done a whole lot of things, but we're still sitting on the same fucking 108 acres. Pardon my French, did I say that?
You made it in France, right?
Yeah. I didn't know fucking was a French word. But nonetheless, that's one of the problems. And under Yancey's watch, they had a CDC on campus. And I asked her once about why the university was not being involved in buying up properties and economic development around it. Now, kids, see, I'm not no economic developer. I'm an educator, and my job is to get these kids in here and get them educated so they can leave and go out and get them a good job. Fuck entrepreneurship. No schools don't teach that. They teach you how to be workers. Johnson C. Smith abandoned the idea, or even never had the notion, that they should be developing around them. And the house that was in McCrory Heights, the president's house, was sold because the incoming president, Ron Carter, decided that that neighborhood wasn't good enough, because if he wanted to have a meeting there, people were breaking into cars. Well, goddamn, you got a security force. Why don't you have your security guards out there watching? So he decided he didn't want to stay in the neighborhood and convinced them to spend over $700,000 to go and buy a house in Myers Park so the white folk could see him. And when they see him, they know, what does Negro want now? You know, there was Queens College, there's UNCC, there's Davidson. Ask them if they left the communities they serve to go and be like the people that had, you know, jaundiced eyes about their being there in the first place. So those are things that I think the university has completely failed at. Now, what I think they're doing good now is they hired a new president and got rid of Ron Carter. Every president deserves a chance. And she's in her third year of her chance. So basically, my jury might still be out, but it's quickly coming to some conclusions. And to answer your question about what I think they're doing right, they're seemingly reestablishing our liberal arts legacy that Ron Carter stripped. And we were a university wherein it was said at one time that 80% of the black teachers in Charlotte-Mecklenburg came through Johnson C. Smith University. The majority of the ministers here at one time came through the Johnson C. Smith University Seminary, which subsequently folded up and moved south to Atlanta, where it's now part of ITC, Interdenominational Theological Center. The Mosaic Village, that was a bumfuck if there ever was one. We simply made the folks who developed it secure. And instead of embracing our history, and it costs too much to renovate these halls. Well, find you some money, renovate the halls, save your history, and don't go and prop somebody else up financially that don't look like you, but only want you to help them secure their financial stability. So to the extent that we ever get back to realizing our own self-worth, I got a problem. But I am, to answer your question, the most impressive thing that I think we're doing is winning games and bringing back liberal arts. We built a STEM center up there that had to sit vacant for damn near 3 years because we didn't have the money to develop it. And we'd run around talking about we the premier urban whatever kind of institute he wanted to think it was. That was his only pipe dream. You tell me you're going to have money to compete with UNCC and their STEM programs? Get your head out your ass.
I got another question.
Okay.
But actually, nah, you go. Yeah, I'm positive.
Hey y'all, my name is Dawn. I teach at West Charlotte, and I'm also getting my master's. So, together, sister. I'm getting my master's in African American Studies, and so I've been looking at the lingering effects of redlining. And so
to you talk about how we had such a prominent community here, and then we went and chased the dream somewhere else, and then just comparing what the redlining maps look like in Charlotte. I was wondering, one, have you seen those redlining maps? And then two, like some of the effects that I've found are like environmental effects, like it's hotter in Black neighborhoods because there are more sidewalks and streets and roads, less greenage, less greenery. The education is not top tier, less resources, things like that. So I was wondering, did you feel those effects
Yeah.
when you were coming up, and how do you recognize those effects now?
Yeah, and we went to sleep at the switch, and what I mean by that is, once the civil rights movement kind of slowed down, so to speak, some felt like we had arrived. And I think one of the biggest problems of that has been my generation and its failure to keep the pedals to the metal and telling our stories and the stories of America to our kids. So now we got young kids coming along who don't vote because they feel like the government don't do nothing for us. Well, how you like what the government is doing to you because you didn't go vote to select people who would do for you. On the issue of, like you mentioned, the sidewalks and the streets, hell, my generation of folk, fought and struggled to get sidewalks in our neighborhoods. Now you ride through a neighborhood, brother want to walk in the damn street. And you blow the horn, he act like you crazy. And as far as redlining, that ain't going away. The only thing about the redlining is that you got folks now who are coming in under the guise of gentrification. That's just a whole nother way of redlining. But it's more greenlining for them because they can come in and buy your redlined house, street cheap and build a monstrosity. Now all of a sudden your neighborhood is elevated to a degree, but in elevating that neighborhood you're forcing a lot of its inhabitants out because you force the tax rates up. And then you get people in elected positions who don't present legislation that can mitigate those circumstances of rising taxes by saying, you stay in your house, we're going to give you some incentives tax-wise that's not going to force you to being unable to pay your taxes because somebody else moved in and built a $700,000 or $800,000 house next to your $100,000 house. So that's one of the things. And one of the most disturbing things for me is how we get folks at a certain point where they believe every damn thing somebody tell them. Like 69 was the last year of the second ward high school class, and there was a bond referendum, and they floated the bonds and told the black folk, we're going to tear down second ward, but we're going to build it back in urban renewal. Bullshit. They're just building a second ward high school, and it ain't a high school like second ward high school was. Forget being all black. Hell, they done moved the black folk out, so that's not an issue. But I also saw on Tuesday, we just had a vote on the 1 cent tax. How about they showed us a map of where this train on the red line is going to stop. And now some of the opposition had said, number one, this is an economic development piece. This ain't no transit. This is economic development because they want all this development like you've seen. There is a stop north of Charlotte that runs 6 miles. And a bulk of that 6 miles goes through districts and areas where black working class is, but there are no stops in that 6 mile. And yet you have these pontificating Negroes telling you to vote for this shit. And then, lo and behold, now there comes another map that talks about they're bringing jobs and industry in here, and where are they putting it? Right in the middle of where that no-stop zone is for transit. Well, they're going to decide that later on. No, the fuck they ain't. Pardon my French, y'all. They're going to do just what they said they're going to do. And they fooled you into believing it was a 1 cent or 1% tax increase. It's a 14% tax increase. And now they're running this thing about a express lane. That is not a fucking express lane, it's fucking toll lanes. You gotta pay for that. And it's a smoke screen, they blow it up y'all's asses to make you think an express lane is what they're doing. Express lane is what we used to call the fast lane. And where's the fast lane? On the left side. The slow lane is the right side. And the middle lane is those who can't make up their mind. I'm going to go slow now. I'm going to speed up a little bit. And not only do these express lanes make other folks rich, but it redlines people like, let's say, you got 3 kids. You live in Cornelius. You work downtown. You got to get your kids to school. And by the time you get your kids to school and start your 8:30 job downtown, the traffic is backed up, but the quote-unquote express lane got cars just going along. But in those express lanes, they're paying for it. One lady indicated how she went 2 miles in an express lane and they charged her $5. That was that one trip, not for the day. So, you got 3 kids to get to school, you got to get to work. Man, I got a 4-mile drive, and during peak time periods, it's when the rates are highest.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
You could be paying
that's the
20.
crazy part.
You could be paying 20, 25. Somebody said $30 for a stretch. Well, now, if you are a moderate income, you can't afford to get in those express lanes. Oh, I'm sorry, toll lanes. And then if you don't pay, they're going to pull a ticket out. But yet we had black folk talking about how great this light rail is going to be, and them niggas, oh, I'm sorry, ignoring the fact that this is not for us. It damn sure ain't by us. So FUBU is out the window. It's for them, by them, and many of those folk who are going to be riding that lane are going to probably be corporate people whose jobs to some degree are going to offset their expenses, but not you. Yeah, not to mention parking garages.
It's like for them to like in the corporate world, they have
Yeah.
to pay monthly $200 or $250
Yeah.
off their salary paycheck.
Mhm.
Even though they say it's not taxable, they still have to pay for it.
You still got to
And
pay
then
for it.
that's why it's more easy for them to have the, the easy way of transportation because it's more convenient for them.
So y'all don't take these folks' words, what they say, and trust me, there needs to be some unfiltered voices talking to some of these watered down Negroes. So,
Can I just pivot from what she said?
Yeah, for sure,
Sure.
for sure.
I live behind West Charlotte High School. I purchased my investment went to black private schools. So me coming from, you know, black excellence in Philly and coming to West Charlotte, it was an opportunity for me to get back to my community, even though like I'm not brought up and raised in West Charlotte, but we're still the same people. We still have the same type of you know, situation that we go through. So I made it my business to invest into the black community. But yes, it is us. We're investing. So I definitely encourage everyone else to invest into your community when you're first home buying. There are opportunities for first time home buying, especially in I would say you said redlining. Yes, but it's also opportunity zoning as well. So that redlining offsets that red zoning that you had inquired. So I got mine off of my opportunity zone. I got my first time down payment $15K for my home. The home that I had purchased, it was nasty. It was owned by you know, an older white man who didn't care. The reason why I say he didn't care because it was mold in the house. And the state wouldn't allow me to release that $15K for me to purchase that home because of that mold. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, it was us that lived in the mold. That's crazy to me.
We have to take responsibility
That's crazy.
and accountability for our own circumstances. And don't get me wrong now, we ain't in this by ourselves. There are some people who buy into, agree, accept, and support what it is we're about. And therein is where I think the rubber meets the road, because a lot of folk are on the opposite side strictly by ignorance. They just don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know.
That's true, and that's why I'm glad that I grew up how I grew up, because I do know to, like, you know, you gotta invest in our community. Yes, it is a penny to invest in that house. That house is still not done. Like,
Yeah.
the inside, but the outside look ugly. But I think it's worth it because just for me to just live around a corner,
Yeah.
to come here and to have that good energy of like you are doing the right thing. It's like reassurance of like what I'm doing in investment wise is correct thing. So I applaud you and I thank God for you for able to share about the black history of this community, which is very, very important because a lot of times we don't we don't know, and it's so sad. But
I'm working on a story now, and I'm calling it Urban Renewal 3.0. And it focuses on McCrory Heights. Are you in McCrory Heights? No. Okay. Well, McCrory Heights was founded and established by late President Henry L. McCrory, who was then president at Johnson C. Smith. And he was even all up along Beatty's-Ford Road. So Urban Renewal Removal 1.0 was because eminent domain took part of his land, McCrory Heights, to put that water tower on back in the 1920s. Then along came Urban Renewal 2.0, when they decimated McCrory Heights to make way for the Brookshire Freeway and I-77. Some folk who had been in more of the affluent inner cities like Brooklyn, Thurwood, moved into McCrory Heights. But McCrory Heights families affected by those construction projects moved to Hyde Park, which grew out of McCrory Heights. And now, Urban Renewal 3.0 is the state is coming in now with these quote-unquote express lanes and going to decimate some more of McCrory Heights and 7 other neighborhoods along that 11-mile stretch from the state line up toward Huntersville, Cornelius. So the issue of the redlining, yeah, that ain't going away because they just find other ways. They've always found other ways. And did I answer all of your questions? Because you had a rather... Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to have this because of what I said at the beginning. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And what you said is so important because Brooklyn, Charlotte had 1,400 black residents. It was good, fellas. But Brooklyn, Charlotte had 1,400 black residents, all classes, from high class, middle class to low class. And a lot of the tenants were up under slumlords. And that was the justification to do urban renewal. So these owners of these homes who didn't take care, they didn't get rid of the mold, they didn't replace these things, made the local government look at it like a majority of these homes are slums. Let's get rid of them. But there was 13 churches in that same district. There was J.T. Williams homes, there was doctors, there was physicians, but the slumlords is the reason they got rid of that. So having these kind of discussions with our elders who was there to see that, and the things that are going on right now with Border Patrol and ICE and all this stuff going on, this stuff has happened before. But if our generation is not aware of this, it's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen again and again and again.
I pulled up that ACO Charlotte when they were talking about I-77, the new tolls, and it's literally said in the caption, history could repeat itself if the state moves forward with the plan to widen I-77 with going to
Yeah, and it only affects black neighborhoods.
Well, this time around, it's going to hit some white folks too, because it's coming from the state line
Oh, okay.
all the way up to Huntersville, Cornelius area, and
And there's other things to look out for too. There's data centers with this AI stuff that's polluting the water, it's polluting everything around it, and they have interest in putting one in Roswell's Ferry. Not Valentine, but Roswell's Ferry. So, we got. Yeah.
It's a data center, and then produce bad water and systems and pollutes there where you can't even drink clean water.
Right. And the sad part is the employees are going to work there, but they're not going to live there. So they don't have to deal with the repercussions. But, so we have to be aware of these things.
You got some more pictures?
I do.
Show them other pictures.
Okay, I'm going to show y'all some more pictures. So I have a picture of Excelsior Club where...
Excelsior Club. Y'all, all y'all know anything about the Excelsior Club? Raise your hand. Yeah. Y'all don't know about the Excelsior Club. Good. That means y'all didn't bring your little young asses in there when you were supposed to be. But are y'all from Charlotte? Okay. You're not?
I'm from Columbia.
Oh, South Carolina. South Carolina. Well, at any rate, you from Charleston? Charleston? Okay. I love Charleston. I love that city.
Yeah, Charleston, no.
The Excelsior Club was established by a man named Jimmy McKee in 1944. And it's where the black elite intelligentsia went, because they couldn't go to Quail Hollow and all the exclusive white clubs. So Jimmy McKee, who was a 7th grade dropout, married to a school teacher, decided, I gotta build something for these people to go to. And he came up with the Excelsior Club. So he bought this house on Beatty's-Ford Road. And that house was built in 1917. He took that house from 1944 to 1952, gutted it, stripped it, and rebuilt around it to what you see here. And in 1981, 82, Jimmy was diagnosed with cancer, and his health was failing. He decided he was going to sell the club. Now, there were quite a few black entrepreneurs and wealthy black folk who were his buddies, many of whom thought they had first dibs on buying the Excelsior Club. But it was not to be. Jimmy McKee and his wife and my family came out of First Baptist Church West. My sister that I showed you with the violin also played the bass fiddle, and her high school band director at West Charlotte High School had a little side gig and a combo that would play at the Excelsior. And he would bring her in to play the bass fiddle with his group at the Excelsior Club. I had an uncle who was a Johnson C. Smith student and subsequently into their seminary, who would also, because he was musically inclined, would play the Excelsior Club. So between our church relationships and those personal relationships, my family ran deep with Jimmy. So when he decided to sell it, he sold it to me and my business partner, and it pissed everybody else off who thought they had dibs on it. Subsequently, I promised to Jimmy that I, number one, was not in it to run a club. I was in it for the historic significance of his place and what he had done. And I pledged to him before he died that I would have this place designated an historic property. I bought the club in '84. In '85, it was designated an historic property, and Jimmy McKee died. Subsequently, after doing that, I knew I was never in it to run a club, and my work here is done. And besides, my wife said, if you don't leave that shit alone, I'm leaving you. Okay, baby, I'm out. I sold the club to my then business partner because the original one had sold his shares to his former business partner to settle a legal dispute between them. So now Pete Cunningham was my partner. I sold my shares to Pete, and then Pete owned it outright from '87 to 2007. He subsequently sold it in 2007 to attorney James Ferguson, who had been one of those original folks who, like Pete Cunningham, thought they were going to get it when Jimmy decided to sell it. So for 10 years, from 2007 to 2017, attorney James Ferguson, who recently died, owned the Excelsior Club. And some financial stresses, fell upon them, and they subsequently returned it under foreclosure to Pete Cunningham's widow, Carla Cunningham, was a state representative. Subsequently, she sold it to a developer from California who came in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about what he was going to do with the Excelsior Club and didn't do shit. So the place from 2017 until now has just been sitting in disrepair, and it's falling in and all that kind of stuff. But now a local brother named Sean Kennedy and Kennedy Properties has a contract to purchase the Excelsior Club and develop all around it into a very meaningful social facility. So I'm supportive of that effort. And this was a picture probably taken somewhere in the 60s with some of the black professionals. Now, the problem with the Excelsior Club and its ability to continue its existence was part of that issue I referenced earlier about the best of the village leaving the village. Their kids, me and mine, left. And then who kept the Excelsior Club going was that moderate to lower income group of people, because all of the black elitists had abandoned not just the neighborhood or the village, but they were finding themselves aligned with the Quail Hollows and all of the other more exclusive white facilities. So now, where are we today? Sean Kennedy has a vision for bringing this back, and for what he has envisioned, it can be and may likely be an outstanding new place for the Beatties-Ford corridor. So you guys are young enough that 10 years down the road, this will be the spot y'all talking about. This will be the spot y'all go. I remember our former mayor, Anthony Fox, in the 40th anniversary of the club, told an audience there celebrating the 40th anniversary, remembering his late grandfather, who was a black Democratic Party political operative, would come there and have meetings with prominent Democrats, and he would take little Anthony with him, and little Anthony was running around the club and being a little boy, and that his grandfather had his 4-year-old birthday party for Anthony here. And I turned to my photographer and I said, you know what? I bet that son of a gun will not have his 4-year-old son's birthday party at the Excelsior Club. I don't know how old his son was at the time, but we didn't have his birthday party at the Excelsior Club. So that's the dilemma that they're going to face, is who is going to be the new face of the Excelsior Club? The elitists, some of them will probably come because they've heard about the history. But if they're not from around here, they don't know that history. And it's going to be up to people like y'all now that I've told you to tell them that history. Some of them may be your aunts, your uncles, newcomers that you know coming to town. Tell them about the Excelsior Club. His plan is to open in 2027. I hope he does.
Man, okay, that's the last photo. Tell me what's going on right here, man.
Y'all see my big afro? This guy was Dick Taylor, and Dick Taylor was one of the general WBTV news, WBTV talent, and that meant he hosted with me on the morning show. And the first time I ever played a round of golf, I did was at Dick Taylor's house up on Cowan's Ford, and it was a Sunday afternoon. And he took me out on the golf course, and I don't know. He broke 100. I shot 55 or 60 on the front nine. And I said, I'm gonna break 50 on this backside. And I shot, I think it was a 50, 45, something like that on the back nine. And I birdied the last hole. I was so proud of me. Yeah, man, I did. And then I started playing golf. There's a guy here they call Slim Bowler. Any of y'all know Slim? Okay. Well, Slim was a golf hustler. And Slim was going to teach me the game, which he did. But my background was baseball, and I had a baseball swing and not a uppercut like golf, you know. So after I finally get out of the woods and get on the green, I could putt. That's where the money is, on the green. And I learned to play golf, but I quit after I whooped Tiger the third time, and he started crying. Y'all laugh. Y'all don't believe that, but I did. I whooped Tiger 3 times. The third time he started crying, and his daddy was trying to console him. And I finally told him, I said, Tiger, don't cry. I'm really good. So, but don't cry. You're not going to be 10 years old all your life. So let that sink in. But yeah, Dick Taylor and I did the morning show together. And I subsequently from that became the weekend news anchor. And then from that, I became Director of Community Affairs the last 3 years.
Sure. Appreciate you all again. We're going to wrap this up. And I want to give Mr. Ken Koontz another round of applause.
I heard the word legend. I have to tell y'all. How many of y'all know what a legend is? Just your hands, you know what this is. Well, anytime you hear somebody say Ken Koontz and they say he's a legend in the same sense, say, no, he's not. And the reason why, you know what they say about legends? Heck, that shit ain't true.
He's all worth it.